Hello everyone. I'll be with you in just a moment. I'm going to share my screen with you. So hello and welcome to this session on helping young adults to take control of their learning. My name's Ian and I'm going to be joined by my colleague Fran. We both work in the adult product management team at Cambridge University Press. This means that we're involved in the publishing of English language materials for adult learners. Between us, we have around 40 years of experience working in education and in assessment. And today we're just going to have about 15 minutes to introduce you to this topic with some practical illustrations from some recent publishing. Of course, 15 minutes is not very long for a big topic like this. So we'll finish with some recommendations for further reading. And we should have about 10 minutes for a question and answer session at the end. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, but we'll have a look at those questions at the end of the session. So, what do we know about adult and young adult learners in 2020? Of course, the world is constantly changing and at an increasingly rapid pace. But has the way in which we study and learn languages really changed that much in recent years? What do we know about the challenges and opportunities for adult and young adult learners in 2020? And is a good language learner in 2020 any different from a good language learner 20, 30, or even more years ago? So let's start by looking at how we might define a good learner. What we consider to be the behaviors or attributes of a good learner probably haven't changed hugely over the past few decades. In a paper from our language research team on what a successful language learner and their teachers do, motivation and self-regulation are highlighted as particularly key attributes. And as anyone who's successfully learned a language will know, you cannot become a successful communicator in another language just by turning up for class for a couple of hours per week. You need to be motivated and disciplined enough to expand your learning and exposure to the target language outside of the classroom as well. Now, there are lots of theories and ideas around how to motivate learners, but most would agree that the teacher is central to helping to support, encourage, and stretch their students. The quotes you can see on the screen are from the same research paper I referred to in the previous slide. Perhaps less obviously though, but just as importantly, a learner's peers can also be very motivating if the activities are managed carefully. For example, peer group activities can provide learners with the time they need to think through problems at their own pace and level. It can also be very motivating to be introduced to near peers who have successfully progressed to the next level of communicative competence. For example, someone from a year above speaking to the class below about their experiences and their achievements. The research we've done into this area isn't just academic though. We're in regular contact with learners and teachers around the world, and we've identified some other important points that we've been very careful to bear in mind when creating our courses for adults. Firstly, no surprise, adults and young adults are busy. English studies are just one small part of their lives, and they often struggle to find the time required to make real progress. However, most of us do have moments to fill, and rather than requiring our students to sit down for an hour in the evening to do homework, could we perhaps help them with tasks and activities that they could do while sitting on the bus? Of course though, attention spans tend to be short, so whatever we ask learners to do, it's got to be engaging enough to keep them focused and away from the likes of TikTok and Instagram. Finally, there's the obvious but important fact that most students have access to a smartphone, and they're probably much more likely to have their own smartphone than their own laptop computer. So any digital content that we create for learners must be smartphone friendly. I'm going to hand over to Fran now, who's going to briefly look at some of the implications for language learning and materials development. Over to you, Fran.
Thanks, Ian. Hi, everyone. So, in practical terms, what can we do as educators to help motivate learners and encourage them to take control of their learning? Firstly, it's important to help learners set personal goals. Passing tests or exams might well be a part of that, but encourage them to think beyond that and really think about the purpose of their language learning and what it will help them to achieve. Help them to break down their goals into smaller steps so that they are more achievable. At the same time, it can help some learners to visualize their future selves and imagine what it would mean in terms of their language abilities. They might want to think about someone successful, perhaps even a friend or a relative whose language skills have contributed to their success. And finally, as teachers, it's important to track the progress of our learners and for the learners to feel that they're understood and supported. They'll have ups and downs over the course of their studies, and the teacher is there to provide them with the support, advice, and motivation that they'll undoubtedly need. Sorry, I'm struggling with my slides at home here. Just a moment. Okay, thank you. As publishers, we're aiming to provide teachers and learners with the best possible tools and training to help them succeed. We carefully consider not just what teachers and learners need in the classroom or virtual classroom, but also the best ways to support learning outside of the classroom when the learner is studying independently. As we've established, this independent study is essential for making meaningful progress with any language, but we know how busy our students are. We wanted to capitalise on those moments to fill that Ian mentioned, so we designed our homework activities to be bite-sized. If a student is able to sit down and study for an hour at a time, then fantastic, and we've provided plenty of content for that. But if they only have small pockets of time, then the activities are short enough for them to study and make progress in much shorter chunks. Indeed, this kind of spaced practice can be more beneficial because it allows time for learning to consolidate in between practice sessions. Of course, many of these activities are automatically marked or graded, and it's tempting for the busy teacher to leave monitoring of online work to the platform. But the teacher's role as motivator and coach is key to enabling independent study. Technology simply can't provide the positive and personalised feedback that is so beneficial, so we provide opportunities for teachers to input this. Here are some of the examples of the kind of digital homework activities that we've created for our new English course, Evolve. As you can see, the activities work on both smaller and larger screens, so learners can access the content on any digital device. And the teacher can also access their dashboard, where they can monitor student performance on whichever device they prefer. Motivating students to study outside of the class can really pay dividends within class because it opens up the opportunity for more of that class time to be spent on communicative activities. This can lead to more dynamic and engaging interactions, making for a more enjoyable learning experience overall. And this brings us back to the role of the peer in motivation, because communicative activities means increased interaction with peers, both in physical or in virtual classrooms. And peers can act as role models, examples to one another of what it's possible to achieve as a language learner. Near peer role models don't have to be students from the same class or even the same country. They are simply peers who students can relate to because they have things in common, such as a similar age or similar life ambitions. In our new adult English course, we featured near-peer role models in our student books. Videos accessed via QR codes show real students responding to some of the questions posed in the book. Here, in this example, we see Irene, who talks about what she uses her phone for.
And with apologies from me, you may not be able to hear Irene there, but you could certainly see her. My apologies.
So, you can see that students get the opportunity to watch students like themselves, and the students will be able to hear them communicate in English. And if you'd been able to hear that, you would have heard that yes, there was occasionally the odd mistake. But if Irene can do it, then they can too. Students will still hear language models from speakers of English as a first language, but the real student feature is a role model for motivation and aspiration. Okay, now I'm going to pass you back to Ian for some recommendations for where you can find out more about these topics.
Thank you, Fran. As I said at the start, in 15 minutes, we can really only scratch the surface of some of the topics around motivation and self-regulated learning. But if you are keen to explore more about this for yourself, I can recommend any of the books authored by Zoltan Dornier on this topic, a couple of which you can see on the screen at the moment. Available through our website and of course from your local bookstores or online sellers. Great source of information around motivation. We also have some fantastic research papers that are completely free to download. Here you can see a small selection. So if you visit the Better Learning pages on the cambridge.org website, click on Insights and you'll be able to find these research papers. These are brilliant and I would thoroughly recommend taking a look at those. And finally, if you'd like to know more about the Evolve course and actually hear Irene speaking, please visit the Evolve web pages on our website. Evolve is a 6-level general English course available in print and as an ebook, and with the smartphone-friendly workbook content that Fran demonstrated there. Whatever format you're using it in, includes all the great features that Fran showed, plus a lot more. You can download sample content for free from our website. So if you're interested in what you saw, please do go and take a look. An amazing course, and as I said, available both as a print course and as an ebook, all with digital homework activities as well. Now, we have about 10 minutes for your questions, so do feel free to use the chat box. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment, just while we have a look at those questions, and then I'll read a few out for us to answer. Okay, first question I can see there is, could you write the names of the book which were introduced? Obviously I've just gone through those, made some recommendations there. This session is being recorded, so if you need to go back and look at those, you can do so at any time.
Ian, I can add some in the chat as well.
Okay, yeah, please do. Thank you. There was a question there as well about the platform that we use to create the online homework tasks. Cambridge uses its own learning management system, and for Evolve, the homework activities are on a platform called Cambridge One, which is a Cambridge platform, which students and their teachers have access to when they use the Evolve course. It's a platform that's designed very much for smartphones, but also works beautifully on bigger screens as well. So if people are using laptop computers or even iPads and Android tablets. So yeah, that's a Cambridge platform we've developed those on. And also to pick up on what Fran mentioned there, the dashboards that show things like student progress that are available to teachers also work beautifully on smartphones. Okay, it's an interesting question. I don't know if you'll have a view on this, Fran, but it's how can a teacher help adult and young adult learners who are motivated but have unrealistic expectations beyond their time in the time that they have set for learning a language? And I think as someone who used to teach students exam preparation classes, I came across that often, that there was an expectation of going up 2 or 3 CEFR levels in 6 months. Fran, I don't know if you have any views on that. I have my own, but you're on mute, Fran.
Yeah, so how to motivate a student who has ambitions beyond maybe what's capable in the time available. I think we can help them with that in how we set up our own programs as well. Since there can be a tendency for us to set expectations on students and give them unrealistic expectations about the number of hours that they need to learn English, and they're being bombarded by messages from saying you can learn English in 5 days or 20 in 2 weeks. So I think it's really about talking to them about that, on the things that they need the language for. So perhaps they don't need to be able to write fantastically, or perhaps they might be focusing on their speaking skills, but that might not be the where they need to develop most at a time. So trying to narrow down the scope of what they're trying to achieve. Ian, you said you had some suggestions too.
Yeah, not dissimilar from yours, really. I mean, it is, you're right, taking that time to sit down with them and assess what they want to achieve, and then breaking that down into what that would involve. And as you say, if their goal is to be a good spoken communicator, then perhaps they should just focus mainly on that skill. There's no easy answer. If a student decides they want to pass an exam in 3 months' time, and I think it's just, as a teacher, you need to sort of manage their expectations around that, and it is taking that time to look at each of them as an individual as well, rather than as a class, and marking out those steps to figure out how much progress they can make and how quickly. There's no easy answer, but just taking that time to look at them as individuals. We've had a couple of questions coming about Evolve as well. So does Evolve teach writing skills? Yes, it does. It's a general English course that looks at all 4 skills, so reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And does it go from A1 to C2? It actually goes from A1 beginner up to C1 advanced, not quite to the C2 level, but does go to an advanced level. Interesting question as well about how we can motivate shy students. Certainly with Evolve, we know that's a big issue, and it's particularly when you get to older teenage learners. Sometimes they are very reluctant to practice speaking in class, whether that's virtual or face-to-face. Paradoxically, they also see speaking in particular as the way that they measure their progress. So becoming a good speaker of English is often very important to them. We've certainly, with the Evolve course, ensured that we allow a particular focus and a lot of time on speaking activities and on immersive group-based tasks. So we were talking earlier about peers and the importance of working with your peers. So students who are shy, certainly speaking in front of a class, may be more inclined to speak or get involved in a task if they are working in a small group with their peers and are given time and scaffolding to work on those tasks. Again, Fran, I don't know if you want to say any more on that, but
yeah, so just alternative suggestions. So with Evolve, we have Practice Extra, which is a style of digital workbook where students can practice their language, and they have an opportunity there to practice role plays. So to take one role in a role play, and they can record themselves, and then they can hear the whole role play. So the two players in the role play, for want of a better word, and so they could hear themselves responding to the audio there. And again, that would be just, they'd be able to do that in privacy on their own. And perhaps another thing that has struck me about the kind of the new situation that we all find ourselves in, with classes taking place in Zoom and there being breakout rooms, and I know that some students find it more more embarrassed to speak online perhaps than they would be in the classroom. But then if you can foster good understanding between individual students, and you can put them in pairs in a breakout room, actually there's in that sense it's actually a little bit more private, because it's just the two of them and there are no other students who can hear what's going on. So there are opportunities there perhaps as well to encourage the shyer students to practice. And I think we talked a little bit before about focusing in students on particular skill areas. Students can still make progress in their speaking skills if they're, by developing writing skills as well, or practicing the language through writing, preparing things, taking time to prepare what they might want to say in any given situation, and that can really help as well.
Good, thank you. Question here about the students behind the QR codes. So those are the near peers. So the question from Joanna is, do the students behind the QR codes vary when it comes to age, or are they mostly older teenagers? I can answer that one in that they are a mix of older teenagers and adults. They also vary in the different countries that they come from as well. They come from a range of countries, from Korea to places in Europe and to the Americas. So yeah, a real range of different people behind those QR codes. And as you get to the higher levels, we have used what we've referred to as expert speakers. So in all cases, they were learners of English who had settled in New York and were working in New York, so have become expert speakers in English. So a real range of different types of second language speakers. Some questions about Evolve and about access to the ebooks and so on. The best thing I can recommend, there's a lot of information about Evolve and how to look at sample content and how to purchase. Best thing you can do is go to cambridge.org/evolve. Loads of information there, sample content you can download, and also a button if you want to contact your local Cambridge representative to ask them questions about purchasing and so on. Okay, an interesting question here. Is Evolve suitable as an online course? Evolve was originally conceived as the kind of course that you could teach in a classroom or in a blended way with both print and digital. But of course, things have changed very, very rapidly in the world in the last few months. And we have put together a specific guide for Evolve on how you can teach it online. So either using the print student books plus the digital elements, or the new ebooks and all the other digital elements. So the answer is Evolve was not originally conceived as a 100% online course. However, it absolutely can be taught 100% online, and we've put together a guide for how you can do that using both synchronous and asynchronous activities and the various content that's available. Someone also asked whether the students can choose between using print and ebook. They need to make a decision, really, I think, as a teacher, whether you want your students using the print or the ebooks. But if you have some students using print and some using ebook, that would work perfectly because they are identical in terms of the student books. Okay, and a question about evaluation and assessment, I think. So the question is, Evolve seems to be very interesting. Does it give any recommendation on evaluation? So I guess by that you mean the evaluating and testing students. Fran, do you want to answer that in terms of the test generator?
I might need to hear that question again because I was distracted by writing a comment.
Sorry, no problem. Evolve seems to be very interesting. Does it give any recommendation on evaluation? So in terms of testing in Evolve.
So testing, so there's a test generator component that offers unit tests and end of level and mid-level tests. So that's obviously very key. And then the online component, all the activities there are graded, so some institutions find that they like to use that as part of for ongoing assessment as well. And in addition to that, at the end of every unit, there's a progress check where students are able to kind of review the learning objectives of that that lesson and decide how well they've achieved them, and then they're asked to kind of prove it, to sort of give evidence of the different of how they've achieved those different learning objectives.
Good, thank you very much. I think we're about out of time there, but just to summarise, if you're interested in the Evolve course, loads of information and sample content at cambridge.org/evolve, including information about the ebooks on there. And do check out cambridge.org/better learning for those research papers that I mentioned earlier. You can find them in the Insights tab on those pages. Fantastic resource, some great reading. We've had a very short time here to tackle this big topic, so do take a look at those research papers, and thanks for taking the time to listen to us.
Thanks everyone.